Hi everyone, and welcome to the YRX Crypto Podcast. I'm your host Lianna, and I'm very happy to introduce our guest for today, Malte Baumann, a consulting lead at NOUMENA Digital. Welcome, Malte.
Hey Lianna, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to become part of this podcast. I've done a few talks before, but this is actually the first time I'm joining a podcast, so very excited.
Well, welcome. Today we're chatting with Malte about how blockchain has evolved from a buzzword to a vital tool for businesses, diving into the journey of Web3, the challenges and the key moments that made it happen. So let's start with, how you got into Web3 and what has your journey been like?
All right. So my journey in Web3. After graduating, I started my career in the consulting business at PwC Financial Services practice. My focus was on IT consulting, IT auditing. The first years, I mainly worked on process optimization and automation projects. And then the first blockchain and crypto clients approached PwC Germany and were onboarded as new clients for PwC Germany by my partner at that time and me. This is when my first professional involvement with Web3 started and when I started immersing myself in the subject matter. Privately, I had already dealt with the topic before, but not in terms of real application in a business or corporate environment, but simply with buying and trading crypto assets. But then I was working as a real project manager on some crypto and blockchain projects with clients who provided crypto services and needed support. I also had to set up a crypto practice for PwC Germany, and then I moved to Chicago with my family. I was with PwC US for 1.5 years. And after that time in the States, I decided to not join PwC Germany again, but to found my own company together with a business contact of mine. So we took the risk, started our own Web3, I would call it boutique consultancy. It's called Solve. And at Solve, we initially focused on delivering consulting projects on the one hand for crypto startups on typical topics in the first phases like fundraising, supporting with pitch decks, etc. And on the other hand, for enterprises that wanted to do some kind of use case discovery, start pilot projects, just making use of blockchain technology. We then also founded the conference brand, and 3 months ago, we held a major conference at Signal Iduna Park in Dortmund, the stadium of BVB. The event was a complete success, and there will be definitely a second edition next year, by the way. And that's also where I got to know you guys. The focus of this event also was on supporting enterprise adoption. And since the beginning of this year, I've been working as consulting lead for NOUMENA Digital. It's a company with its headquarters in Zug, close to Zurich in Switzerland, and offices in Hamburg, Belgrade, and London. Together with the team at NOUMENA, I'm building up NOUMENA's own consulting unit and helping customers understand their pain points and problems, identify solutions, and how they can be built using NOUMENA technology. And blockchain, of course, is still relevant for me at NOUMENA because NOUMENA is not a classic software company, I would say. It builds enterprise-grade software based on many paradigms that are also similar to Web3 and blockchain. And of course, we also work a lot with various Web3 service providers and blockchain foundations.
Wow, you're deeply, deeply entrenched in Web3 and blockchain, which is wonderful. So what were the initial perceptions of blockchain and how have they evolved over time? Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is something that I came across the other day, that the blockchain basically shares a large number of functional and structural similarities with our DNA. I'm just wondering if that statement is right as well.
And that statement was new to me. I don't know. I've never heard about it before, but I'm happy to do some research around that. But from my perspective, the initial perceptions of blockchain were closely tied to Bitcoin, of course, the first and most famous application of the technology. Blockchain, from my perspective, back in the days, was largely seen as synonymous with Bitcoin and as a tool for enabling a new form of digital money, independent of traditional financial systems. And as people then began to understand blockchain better with all the Bitcoin hype, they started exploring its potential beyond Bitcoin. And then, of course, there was the big launch of Ethereum in 2015. So 7 years after Bitcoin introduction. And that, from my perspective, was another important moment, because then Ethereum introduced the concept of smart contracts, which allowed for programmable transactions on the blockchain and not only exchanging digital money or value, which opens up possibilities in further areas like supply chain, legal agreements, etc. And I think already around this time, the first financial institutions and large corporations began to take blockchain more seriously. And then another 2 years later, there was this massive boom in ICOs where new cryptocurrencies, new blockchain projects were funded by public token sales. Of course, this was very, very, very crazy time. This led to a lot of speculation. Many projects raised millions of dollars, sometimes just without a solid product or without a plan at all. However, this also led to a lot of overpromising, with many projects failing to deliver. And then after that time, after Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the ICO hype, I think the focus finally shifted towards building real blockchain applications. Companies began to explore how blockchain could be integrated into their existing systems, their IT landscape, to improve security, transparency. I will get to that later. And also governments and regulatory bodies started paying more attention to this new technology and had initial discussions around regulation. That was, from my perspective, both a challenging and an opportunity time, as regulation definitely brings legitimacy to the space, but also imposes restrictions, of course. And today, where we are now, I think blockchain is viewed as a transformative technology, has the potential to disrupt various industries beyond financial services, for example, supply chain, healthcare, real estate, or even voting systems. And I think today the approach is more balanced compared to the latest years, because many corporations now focus on finding the right use cases rather than just applying blockchain just to do it and to be able to say, I'm now using blockchain technology. So overall, from my perspective, the perception, and now I'm coming back to your question, has shifted from being a niche technology tied to cryptocurrencies to a more mature technology with wide-ranging application in the real world. But to be very clear, and ending the statement here, I think a lot, of course, already happened in terms of blockchain enterprise adoption, but we're still at the beginning, I think.
Yeah, I remember the ICO times, and it was a crazy, crazy time where there were just so many, tokens and coins, being launched left, right, and center. I remember there was an influx of them in the market. Do you think, what were the main challenges, you think, and the misconceptions that hindered the early adoption of blockchain in the business sector besides, the whole ICO bubble?
I think a very interesting and important question, because I often think about this and, of course, try to work with my clients on these points. I would try to answer it this way. The first point from my perspective is unlawful activities and fraud. As I mentioned before, for a long time, blockchain was almost exclusively associated with Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, which were often linked to unlawful activities like money laundering, drug dealing. Of course, some of the early market players and the press have contributed to this, but this negative association made many businesses step back from adopting blockchain technology because they were just fearing reputational damage or legal complications. Then the second challenge, I think it was a lack of understanding, or still is a lack of understanding, because the technology itself, as well as the very developing market with a constant stream of new application and products coming onto the market almost every day, can certainly only be understood and sorted with a great deal of effort. And I think this lack of understanding in the enterprises led to resistance, particularly from executives, decision makers who didn't see the clear value for their company or industry. And then there were difficult times like the pandemic, and they simply had to focus on its core business instead of dealing with new topics. And I think this is completely normal. And then third topic or challenge from my perspective is more a technical challenge, scalability. Early blockchain networks like Bitcoin, Ethereum, they faced significant scalability issues. Slow transaction speeds, high transaction fees as the number of users increased, and these limitations made the technology seem impractical for businesses because many businesses required high transaction throughput. And then the last but not least, and this is where my old PwC part of my heart beats faster, is there's of course also regulatory uncertainty still. The regulatory environment around blockchain cryptocurrencies was and still is fragmented. Regulators struggled to keep pace with the technology. There was inconsistent regulation across jurisdictions. And then businesses, especially in critical and already regulated industries, such as financial services or healthcare and pharma, hesitated to adopt the technology or blockchain solutions without clear regulatory guidelines. And I think I could go on like this and continue to report on my experiences in recent years, but I think I just want to touch on a few more. There's, of course, the energy consumption concerns, also a topic that is often heard and asked about. Then security and trust issues in particular. I often hear the topic of data protection over and over again, which is, of course, correct, but there are also solutions here and also the lack of skilled professionals that really understand the potential that this technology brings.
Yeah, we have come a long way in a very short span of time, right? If we think about it, and something that you mentioned earlier on about education, like there's still a lot of us, right, that's still not fully educated on what blockchain can bring. Can you highlight some key turning points or milestones that mark the transition from hype to practical enterprise adoption, perhaps?
Yeah, of course. I think we've already talked about the start with Bitcoin, the birth of the technology, I would call it. And then afterwards, I also mentioned the launch of Ethereum. Although I already mentioned it, is of course a very important relation to the adoption of companies because Ethereum introduced the concept of smart contracts. This was a major innovation that extended blockchain's use cases beyond cryptocurrency. And it was the first time, like from my perspective, this was a key turning point because it's now possible to develop real applications or programs that run on the blockchain. And then after this turning point, it continued with the formation of the very first industry consortia. I have to admit that I wasn't active in the industry myself at that time. I was just starting out my professional career after university, but the creation of industry consortia like Enterprise Ethereum Alliance or Artistry, a consortium focused on blockchain for financial services, that also represented a major step towards mainstreaming. Because these groups brought together major companies to collaborate on standards and applications, and this, of course, helps legitimize the technology in the business world. I want to give an example here. In 2017, the Linux Foundation's Hyperledger project, they launched the Hyperledger Fabric, which was or is an open source enterprise-grade blockchain platform. And unlike public blockchains, Hyperledger Fabric was designed to meet specific needs of businesses, like offering permission networks, customizable smart contracts, etc. And then after the Ethereum launch and the industry consortia, I think the next it was kind of the adoption of major financial institutions, because some of the financial institutions like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs began exploring and implementing blockchain solutions for payments, settlements. One example from 2019, you just mentioned that, it's just 5 years ago when JP Morgan launched their JPM coin, a dollar-backed stablecoin, and as of the end of last year, this was used for approximately 1 billion of transactions each day. And then Also, governments and regulatory bodies started to understand the technology better. It started providing clearer guidelines. This is, from my perspective, another key turning point after the time the financial institutions started to exploring. And then there is, for example, European MiCA regulation, which was approved April last year by the EU Parliament and will be fully applied until the end of this year. Is definitely a big milestone from my perspective, since it improves legal certainty around crypto assets. And today, my feeling is that the current trend, and I've seen it for 2 to 3 years now, is using blockchain for ESG initiatives and central bank digital currencies. Companies slowly begin using the technology to enhance sustainability goals, meet their ESG goals. For instance, you can use blockchain technology to track the provenance of your products or verify carbon credits. And also central banks around the world start piloting blockchain-based digital currencies. And I mean, if states and regulators are dealing with blockchain now, and it now also is tested as a tool in the context of ESG, then we can clearly no longer speak of hype in these cases, but of real use and utility in the corporate world.
Yeah, I feel like we're only scratching the surface, and and when you speak about blockchain for ESG, yeah, definitely, I'm falling quite closely with that. Especially when we can use blockchain for good, right? Which other industries are leading in the adoption of blockchain technology, and why do you think that is?
Mm-hmm. I think, first of all, and that's pretty clear, it's financial services, because you can use blockchain as a transparent and secure way to record transactions. This is nothing different from traditional accounting with a general ledger, I would say, but just in a better way. Also, as we all know, cross-border payments as another example, they're slow and expensive. And there also is a use case of blockchain technology, because you can have faster, cheaper, and more transparent transactions, which is why many financial institutions are exploring or have adopted blockchain-based payment solutions. This is the leader from my perspective. And then there, of course, the supply chain. And why supply chain? Because blockchain allows for real-time tracking of products as they move through the supply chain. And there, the benefit comes when all stakeholders have access to the same information at the same time to, for example, verify the origin, authenticity of goods. And also, blockchain can streamline processes there by reducing intermediaries, paperwork, manual work. Then I also see a movement in real estate, where blockchain enables fractional ownership of real estate through tokenization, which makes real estate investments more accessible to a broader range of investors. It can automate and enforce terms in property sales, financing agreements, and this also reduces the need for intermediaries like brokers. And then, of course, I see the energy sector as blockchain provides a transparent and tamper-proof way to track and trade energy credits. You can ensure that they are legitimate and accurately recorded. And it streamlines also energy markets, because you can have P2P trading instead of making use of intermediaries. And actually, it just occurs to me that these are almost exactly the industries in which we are most active with NOUMENA.
Oh, wow. And, full disclosure, like 3 years ago, right to the day, during the fall of Kabul, I had actually used blockchain technology to raise funds because at that time in Afghanistan, the banks were shut by the Taliban. And we raised money, through NFTs, and then used the blockchain technology, send money across to, the people on the ground in Afghanistan. And we managed to feed 100 families for about 3 months, and also providing them basic necessities. And, we've also managed to put 16 girls into private education, and blockchain technology is just amazing, and I'm really, really excited to see where the future will be with this technology. So what do you think are the main benefits that companies are experiencing, from integrating blockchain into their operations?
I mean, I think I've already explained a lot of the benefits in my previous answers, but to bring them up again here. First, transparent record keeping. Decentralized immutable ledger that allows all participants in a network to have access to the same data at the same time. And this brings transparency, which is particularly valuable in industries like supply chain, where it's crucial to track the movement of goods. And second, it's improved traceability, because you can trace the entire history of an asset or product on the blockchain, since it's just an immutable ledger, which helps in verifying the authenticity and can help reduce fraud, because this is especially important in industries like pharmaceuticals, food, or even luxury goods, I would say. Then there are two topics around data integrity, all the cryptographic features that ensure that once data is recorded, it cannot be tampered anymore. So it's kind of a secure way to store and manage information. And the other topic around data is data sharing. If you're acting in a network where multiple parties need to collaborate, but may not fully trust each other, then blockchain is a good way to have a platform for data sharing. This is also, for example, very helpful in industries like healthcare, where you have sensitive data that needs to be shared, but in a secured way. Then I see another two benefits. One of them is the decentralization aspect, or the elimination of intermediaries. With blockchain, you can have peer-to-peer transactions, which lead to lower transaction costs, faster processing times, and also with its decentralized architecture, you can reduce the risk of single points of failure, having outages or so. I mean, we all saw the CrowdStrike moment a month ago. The outage of, I think it was over 8 million Windows devices, was caused by a faulty modification to their own software product. And this is where decentralization also helps. And the last point is then streamlining processes and automation, I would call it, because you're able with smart contracts to automate routine processes, such as invoicing, for example, cut your operational costs, and the transactions can be more quickly than in traditional systems, especially in areas like cross-border payments. We had this before, where many intermediaries are typically involved, and it takes days to have this transaction processed. And then after these 6 benefits, I think there's also perhaps not directly a main benefit of the technology itself, but certainly an important aspect to mention. This is innovation and new business models, I would call it. An example from my perspective is tokenization. With blockchain, you are able to tokenize physical or real-world assets. This has led to the creation of new business models that haven't been there before, such as fractional ownerships in real estate, for example. And now companies and corporates are developing decentralized applications based on blockchain platforms, offering new services that operate completely without centralized control. For example, also around digital identities, verifiable claims, where you, Lianna, can be the real owner of this claim or identity, and you're independent of a third party.
Wow. I mean, I feel like, there is still a lot to tap into, right? This technology. And what are some lessons, other companies can learn? I mean, in terms of industry, right? What are some of the possible use cases, I suppose?
Mm-hmm. I think, first of all, I would always suggest to start with a clear business case, because you need to have a well-defined problem that blockchain is uniquely suited to solve. And that's crucial from my perspective, because if there is a clear need to, for example, quickly and accurately track the origin of a food product to improve food safety, then the technology can generate its value in the long term. And then also, blockchain's value often comes from the ability to connect multiple stakeholders within an ecosystem, enabling shared data, access, shared processes. So if you collaborate with partners, suppliers, or even competitors, you can unlock the full potential of blockchain from my perspective, because a platform that brings together various stakeholders in your industry or even outside your industry can create like a more transparent and efficient chain of information across these stakeholders. And then I think third part would be set realistic expectations, what it can achieve. I think many early adopters really put focus on practical benefits that the technology just built-in brings, such as increased efficiency, rather than making huge claims about I'm revolutionizing the whole industry. And then the last part, and this goes back to our discussion we had before around education, etc. You need to be open and flexible, because the market is rapidly evolving. Early adopters must be prepared to adapt their solutions as new standards emerge. You always have to be open to innovation, and you have to be open to continue exploring new use cases and etc. Yeah.
I really love how you basically started like, what is the intention, and, to paraphrase what you were saying, right? Well, early adopters, because that is just so important to know from the start what you want to do and why you want to do it, right? What are some of the technical challenges companies might face, when adopting blockchain technology?
Mm-hmm. I would just touch on two quickly to not lose our listeners, because this is very technical. But from my perspective, there's, of course, this scalability discussion. I mentioned this before. There are, for example, just to give an example, Bitcoin can process around 7 transactions per second. Ethereum can handle like 15 to 30 transactions per second. And that's far less than traditional payment systems like Visa, for example, which can process thousands of transactions per second. And this is, of course, a technical challenge you have as a company when you want to implement use cases that need high throughput. But there's also already a solution here. There are layer 2 solutions, so-called layer 2 blockchains, like, for example, Arbitrum, that can help you as a company by processing transactions off-chain and then settling them on the main net, the main blockchain. And also there are alternative consensus mechanisms in place that are being explored at the moment to also improve scalability. So you see the ecosystem and the communities working on these. And there's also the data privacy concern always, because, of course, the transparency blockchain brings is beneficial with regard to trust, accountability, but it also can pose challenges for data privacy, particularly in healthcare industry, sensitive information. I mentioned that before. And public blockchains, such as Ethereum, are fully transparent, meaning that all transaction data is visible to anyone, which may not be suitable for certain business applications or use cases for companies. And here is also a solution already in place, because there are like, I don't call them privacy preserving technologies like zero-knowledge proofs, for example, or permissioned blockchains where you can restrict access, and this can help in these cases.
Do you think the conversation around power consumption, do you think that is still prevalent in the discussions today when we talk about challenges?
I mean, yeah, of course. I often hear this discussion also from my clients, and many of them, especially if I'm working with a company that is currently working on a, ESG use case or so, or they want to pilot blockchain technology within their sustainability efforts or so, I always hear this discussion. But then if you look at on the one hand, you can just look on at the facts, and if you compare to like the power consumption of of different technologies or so, then you'll definitely see, of course, there is a lot of power consumptions for certain consensus mechanisms, but not that much as the press is making out of it. And the other one is there are already some blockchains in place, like, for example, Celo, that speak of themselves as a carbon negative blockchain because they're doing a lot there to be carbon negative. And this could also be a solution for you.
Yeah, I think, as we keep going, people will try to make this as green as possible, right? How will advancements in blockchain impact regulatory and compliance aspects of companies?
That's quite difficult to say, but I think the advancements will, of course, impact a company at first by ensuring compliance while using the technology. And what I mean by that is, for example, in financial services, again, smart contracts can automate, for example, compliance checks, regulatory reporting of banks, and reduce manual intervention or even professional human judgment there. And then, of course, there's the question around how can I design and implement this smart contract that it still complies with all relevant regulations. And this can be complex or even forbidden by the regulator. So I think this is the first part, really ensure that your smart contracts are legally enforceable and do not breach regulatory requirements. And this requires careful planning and professional review. And then, of course, there will be new regulatory frameworks coming in the future that even better accommodate digital assets or decentralized applications as the frameworks today. And the rise of blockchain-based applications is prompting regulators to develop new rules to address the new emerging risks. And there, I think companies may face uncertainty as regulators catch up with new technologies and think about when can it come into effect, etc. And then the company has to comply with it. So the first part is ensuring compliance while using the technology. Then, of course, the adaptation to regulatory adjustments. And the last part is, and this is more from a use case perspective, blockchain can also help enhance, for example, regulatory or compliance reporting, providing real-time data that potentially a regulator can access directly, and they can even quicker detect any suspicious activities, improve their regulatory oversight. And this is where even the regulator can make use of the technology itself for the compliance activities.
Yeah, and as you were saying all of that, what comes back to me is education. That we all need to be educated in what blockchain can bring, and also keep our finger on the pulse in terms of, regulatory and compliance aspects, right? And then it comes to the question of, does everything need to be on the blockchain, right? How can companies assess whether blockchain is the right solution for the specific needs?
Yeah, I think it's good to start with defining the specific problem or pain point that needs to be addressed. And this is where blockchain does not yet play a role. I think you have to ask yourself more questions around, is the issue or the problem or the pain point I have as a business, is this related to data transparency, transaction efficiency? What problem am I really trying to solve? And can blockchain address the issue more effectively than existing solutions that are already in place and that we're already using within our IT architecture? And if you have a clear understanding about your problem and pain point, then you can work on understanding the unique benefits of blockchain and evaluate if these benefits align with your specific problem or pain point. So does my business problem really benefit from decentralization? Is there a need for distributed ledger? Is there a need for immutable records? Is there a need for enhanced transparency, etc.? So you pretty much map the benefits of blockchain to your specific business problem and pain point. And then you can assess how blockchain compares with existing solutions or alternative technologies. that you can evaluate whether traditional databases or centralized systems could achieve similar outcomes. And if you're of the opinion that, blockchain is the right solution here, then you need, at a very important step, analyze the technical feasibility of implementing it, including all the infrastructure requirements that need to be addressed, the integration with your existing systems, the availability of skilled personnel, we had this before, and also assess whether blockchain can handle the scale of transactions and data volumes required by your business. And this all sounds good. And I'm not speaking about a 6-month, 12-month effort here, but please just do it. And also, even if it's just a high-level assessment, and then you should start with the pilot project or proof of concept to test out the solution and see what value it can bring and if it brings value. And this can help validate your assumptions that you initially had. You can identify potential issues, challenges, and really see if there's a benefit or business value for your company.
And it all kind of circles back to the initial thing of the intention and the whys, right?
Correct.
That is really, really insightful. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Malte?
Yeah, I think what we've missed out a bit is of course, I've told you a lot about my professional experiences that I made and what I'm seeing in the market, working on daily. But what we've missed out a bit is what NOUMENA has to do with all this stuff. And I would like to try to put it in a nutshell. We as NOUMENA, we're a deep tech software company, and we provide a platform for building scalable, privacy-focused software, which can be integrated with enterprise systems, and this even across network boundaries. And if you would ask me what are the key capabilities of our NOUMENA technology, I would say it's multi-party process orchestration. I mentioned certifications, claims throughout supply chains before. This is what I mean by that. Then the second capability would be Web 2, Web 3 workflow scheduling. For example, if we speak about stable coins, there's always a Web 3 blockchain part and also a Web 2 part where people in the real world want to make use of it, and where the stable coin needs to be embedded into like classic apps or so. And the third part, besides multi-party processes, Web 2, Web 3 combined workflow scheduling is modeling digital products. For example, highly complex financial products can be very easily digitized by using our technology. And I think this results in great many features in our technology that are very close to the paradigms and concepts of Web 3 and blockchain. So we have our own NOUMENA protocols that automate multi-party processes. This is very close to the paradigms of smart contracts as in Ethereum, right? And then there's secure P2P messaging that is possible with us, where data is transferred and orchestrated between all the network participants on a strict need-to-know basis. This is very close to what I mentioned before, no intermediaries. Then there is embedded audit trails. Each protocol change of our automated protocols is recorded and visible to authorized parties. So back to blockchain, changes resulting from transactions on the chain are also immutably recorded and can be viewed at any time. So to summarize here, I'm still working kind of at blockchain because we're delivering a completely new type of enterprise software that does not yet exist from my perspective, and which enables the launch of modern ecosystem applications. And the launch can be on your own on-prem environments in the context of the cloud as our NOUMENA platform as a service offering, but also all the applications we build can be integrated with blockchains. And this is where we work closely together with many blockchain foundations.
So in some ways, from what I'm hearing, NOUMENA can also perhaps record impact and measure impact, right? If we talk about like ESG projects, for example. And yeah, I there's so much to unpack there.
You're right.
But yes, thank you so much, Malte, for taking the time to chat with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you as well. It was very great to be here. That was great fun, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like, there's definitely a lot to unpack. And thank you for taking the time to, just really talk us through blockchain, right? Thanks again. And to all our fantastic listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Don't forget to express your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. Thank you for tuning in. And until we meet again, stay well.